Today is Tuesday, March 28th. It's 1:30. We are in City Council chambers. Are we still taking roll by, are we doing still roll calling?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't chaired. Okay, so I'm going to call the roll. Commissioner Alexander,
Present.
Commissioner Soji Gupta,
Present.
Commissioner Brown, present, Commissioner Steig,
Here.
Commissioner Stewart.
Present.
Okay. I'm going to read the rules into the record. The City Planning Commission has established certain rules governing the procedures to be followed at public hearings. Before speaking, each person shall give their name, address, and state whom he or she is representing. Proponents for the proposal will speak first for a period of 10 minutes, and each speaker shall be allowed a maximum of 2 minutes. Opponents or other interested parties will speak second for a period of 15 minutes. Each speaker shall be allowed a maximum of 2 minutes. Proponents will be allowed a period of 6 minutes for rebuttal, and each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 2 minutes. Opponents will not be allowed to rebut. No material, written matter, photographs, maps, etc., will be accepted by the commission or its staff at any time during this public hearing. This procedure shall be followed except at such time when the presiding officer shall, with the approval of the commission members present, extend such time. And that, I believe, concludes my part of this procedure. Oh, yes. We are going to defer considering the minutes from our last meeting because those were, we don't have them yet in our packets.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So first up is zoning docket item 01723.
Zoning docket 01723 is a request by City Council motion M 2358 for a text amendment to the comprehensive zoning ordinance to amend the existing regulations and provide an interim zoning district for commercial short-term rentals within a specific boundary. The staff recommends deferral to the April 11th, 2023 City Planning Commission meeting to allow more time to review existing data and research.
Okay, is there any discussion? If not, we'll move forward. Call the vote for deferral.
Motion.
Is there a motion?
Alexander.
Motion. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Alexander.
I move to defer the item till the April 11th City Planning Commission meeting.
And I second.
I second. Not yet.
Docket is deferred. Next up is zoning docket 01823.
Zoning docket 01823 for City Council motion number M 23 is a request for a text amendment to the comprehensive zoning ordinance to amend Article 19 to establish a new interim zoning district to be named the Bed and Breakfast Interim Zoning District, the intent of which is to ensure that bed and breakfasts are compatible with and preserve the character and integrity of the neighborhood citywide. As the use of bed and breakfasts are similar in use as short-term rentals, the regulations of bed and breakfasts must be considered within the context of the regulations of short-term rentals. So it is the advisement of the City Planning Commission staff to defer the regulations of bed and breakfast until after the new short-term rental regulations are enacted, so that staff can consider the impacts of the IZD and make recommendations that are compatible with the new short-term rental regulations. So we are seeking deferral until the April 25th City Planning Commission hearing.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion or a motion?
I move for deferral to April 25th.
A second?
I'll second.
Now we'll call the vote. Deferral. Motion is deferred. Next up is zoning docket 01923.
This is a,
Excuse me, I just need to defer myself for these next two docket items. Recuse myself.
So this is a request for a zoning change from an HURM1 historic urban multifamily residential district to an HUMU historic urban mixed use district, and a conditional use to permit a parking lot as a principal use. The addresses are 1758, 1760 Jackson Avenue and 2200 Barone Street. It's a vacant corner lot on which the applicant is proposing to build a principal parking lot with 10 off-street parking spaces, including 4 electric vehicle charging stations. Since the use is not allowable under the current zoning, the applicant is seeking the HUMU district. And since a principal parking lot is a conditional use in the HUMU district, the application is also coming with a conditional use to allow the principal parking lot. The issue is that the master plan only allows commercial zoning for properties with existing commercial structures. And while the site has a history of commercial use, it was previously a gas station, that commercial structure has been demolished and the site is currently vacant. Therefore, it's not eligible for commercial zoning under the master plan and the spot zoning policy, and staff cannot support the request. So we are recommending denial of the request. However, the applicant has requested last week to defer the item. He would like to consider alternative options and potentially amend the current request. And we would support that.
Okay, is there a recommendation for a date for referral?
The bare minimum would be a month from now. I would probably request a month and a half,
Okay,
but yeah, he can maybe speak to that, see
Okay.
what he agrees to.
so we have one information card from HMK. Amen. Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Ringala Amen, known as HMK Amen. I live at 2119 Brainard Street, between Jackson and Josephine. I'm here representing myself as well as two more elder than me, neighbors, Linda G. Johnson, who lives on Jackson and Brainard, and Mrs. Jessie Smallwood, who also lives on Jackson and Brainard, across from the other apartment. I just wanted to state our concerns that this property not interfere with quality of life. I was not aware of the application until very recently. There's a card that we received in the mail, a postcard, and the writing was so small that most of us could not read it. We are saying that for consideration for future notices, but we also just want to make it clear that any business that should come into the neighborhood our concern would be quality of life. So lights that are on 24/7 is a concern. I noticed in the application, there was a statement made about part of it would be a coffee shop, and I wonder if that's genuine, because there's a coffee shop right across the street from where the intended development would be. So that's basically our concern, and that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I realized I didn't see any card from the applicant. Is the applicant present? Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. Cornelius Payne, I'm the owner of the property. So to piggyback to what staff was saying, first, let me address, I need to get my address right. So 3436 Magazine Street, owner of the property. I did do an MPP process. All notices have been done, have been confirmed by staff. We did have a staff meeting at community meeting at Central City Library. I don't know if it was missed, but happy to have dialogue with you after this and give you my contact information. At this time, the initial intent was I had been working with staff to put fast charging electric stations at this site. This was a former gas station. That is the commercial history of the site. Have been working with staff for quite some time, and it was my understanding that staff is in process of coming up with the best practices for electric charging stations in the city and also in urban areas. But that text amendment has been forwarded to another meeting. So at this time, as staff has recommended, I would like to propose alternative options of not just placing charging station in a principal lot, but maybe coming up with something that's more complementary to the neighborhood, working with staff, working with neighbors, and the new neighbors is here to see if we can come to a great proposed use that go on that corner lot. So I'm respectfully asking the commission if y'all would grant me a deferral to try to work with staff and see what we can come up with as an alternative option.
Thank you. Oh, do you have any questions about or ideas about a preferred date for deferral?
No, I'm not. I guess I work with Stephen, with staff until we, I guess do you feel August, I think April 25th is the date. That's about 4 weeks, a couple weeks from now. Or... I'm open to wherever staff recommends.
Okay, well, while staff is considering a date, are there any questions for the applicant? If not, go back to you.
We would suggest the first May meeting. It's the 9th, if the applicant is okay with that.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
Okay, I'll move for deferral of zoning docket 1923 to April 9th, is it? Not May, oh, I'm sorry, May 9th to May 9th. To be considered at our meeting on May 9th.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Now we'll call the vote. Motion is deferred. So next up is zoning docket 02023.
Zoning docket 2023 is a request to operate a wine shop in an HUB1 historic urban neighborhood business district. The subject property is situated uptown at the corner of Magazine and Alene Streets, developed with a 2-story building that right now it has residential uses upstairs and 2 commercial tenants downstairs. One of those tenants is our applicant. Our applicant currently operates Spirit Wine, which is a retail establishment for the sale of packaged alcoholic beverages for off-premise consumption. And what the applicant proposes to do is also offer wine tastings and such, like what a wine bar does for on-premise consumption. essentially, the short version of the story is the staff, we've looked at it. We don't see any reason why a wine bar would be any more intense, much more of an intense a use than the current use, which is to, they're selling wine anyway. Let's see what else. It isn't anticipated to give rise to any detrimental effect that doesn't already exist. And not saying that that any does, but it's not going to diminish anything in the area. The proposed wine shop meets all the use requirements, operational requirements for a wine shop. They meet all of them. And the staff thinks that this would be an appropriate use in that part of Magazine Street, and especially since the site already has an adjacent use, if you will. So accordingly, the staff recommends approval, subject to 4 provisos.
Thank you. I have a card from Darren Ulisto, the applicant.
Hello, good afternoon. Darren Alisto, business address 3500 Magazine Street. Yeah, we're seeking the conditional use permit to allow the wine shop, which will allow limited by the glass wine only service. We have support of the Faubourg Delachaise Neighborhood Association and many of the immediate neighbors. There are no schools, playgrounds, or places of worship within 300 feet of the establishment. So we're just here to ask respectfully that the commission approves our request. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I see there are 2 other cards that are seating time. Would you like to speak more? If not, are there any questions?
Yeah, just aware of the provisos in the staff report. And, all right.
Sorry.
Just making sure he's aware of the provisos and what they are.
They are at the end.
No, I was asking the applicant.
Yeah, I believe there's there's hours of operation, time restrictions, square footage, service area restrictions, based on percentages of overall
Okay,
area.
so
So yeah,
we've already
and we're in compliance. Yeah.
compliant to that. Okay.
Okay. There are no other questions. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval of zoning docket 2023 as recommended by staff with 4 provisos.
And I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? If not, we can call the vote. Motion passes. Next up is zoning document, subdivision docket 02223.
Subdivision docket 2223 is a request for a major re-subdivision to create 147 residential lots on Dwyer Road. The biggest part of the parcel fronts Dwyer Road. The site is roughly 13 acres. And like I said, he's proposing 147 home sites. At the DAC meeting, several departments weighed in with questions and things that need to be clarified on the survey, which is typical for a major subdivision. Let's see what else. Proposed sidewalks are proposed, and the street widths are. Public Works had a question about the street widths, but unless and until, it appears that a 60-foot street width would still allow for 5-foot sidewalks on either side of the street and leave 50 feet in the middle for the right of way, which is the minimum for a street. So that, that was what came out of the PAC meeting. the proposal is in fact consistent with the master plan and it, of course, it's okay for the zoning. It was rezoned last year from a business park to the residential zoning that it has today. So that part's been taken care of already. And as I said, there's a lot of revisions that need to be made. Parks and Parkways is concerned about the configuration of the one entrance into the site from Dwyer Road. There was also some concern about the programming that's going to go on in all the different green spaces. Those things are still to be worked out. The applicant is still working on those things to answer Parks and Parkways and Public Works and Real Estate and Records. They had a couple of questions too. Overall, it is an appropriate use for the property and staff recommends approval, subject to, well, I've just lost my place. I'm so sorry. Subject to 9 provisos. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one card from the applicant, Alex Modinger. Could you state your name and address for the record?
Hello, I'm Alex Modinger. I represent J.A. Modinger Architect. I'm the applicant on behalf of Mr. McKendall and Imperium Builders South.
Can you speak in the mic?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Alex Modinger. I represent J.A. Modinger Architect. I'm the applicant for Mr. Kendall and Imperium Builders South.
Is there anything you want to share within your?
Yes, we have a list of provisos and I think we'll get to 11 maybe. So we reviewed the proviso questions and the PAC questions with the civil engineer and the landscape architect. And essentially we agree with all of the provisos. In addition, we believe that if you want to add a proviso for the additional entryway and one that would clarify what the green spaces are, we can include that as well. The intention with regards to the green spaces is primarily to capture and hold water from the municipal portion of the site and the streets and everything for this larger area. And then additional retention of stormwater will be managed lot by lot as each one is individually permitted. So this is where we are balancing the water retention for the entire site. In the cases where we expect to use some of the 2 larger sites to actually hold some water, most of the smaller sites around the site will be landscaped. We're hoping to have a little central park with the walkway where people could come to in one of the portions that we had originally planned for a water retention, but it's still up in the air. It's schematic design right now with that stage. But essentially we have addressed concerns in proviso 1 regarding the lot size of lot 15. And there's also a comment about lot 29. I already have a proposed plan from the landscape architect on that. The civil engineer will be able to provide some more specific specification on the width of the street and the sidewalk. It is per the city specification. So the width is there. And the engineer said there was a drawing in the submission that did have a section. I'm not sure if it was there or not. I didn't have a chance to check that one. We do, as far as the street trees along the Dwyer frontage, we agree with that. We agree with all of them, in fact, but the landscape architect cited an issue that we've run into before on DOTD roadways. We have an access road and then we have the roadway to the south is DOTD. Typically, they will ask us not to put the trees there. We'll do the application. We'll ask them to say no. We'll have Robin CC'd into the email. We've discussed this with my landscape. So we'll go through the normal process of asking for it, being denied, and we'll revise the drawing. So we'll get that part taken care of as well.
Sorry, that's your time. Does anyone have a question for the applicant?
I would like to hear the rest, if that's okay with everyone else, to hear the rest of what you were going to tell us about that.
No problem. Essentially, the landscape architect will also be filling in some of the area in the CD phase in terms of what will be at the entryway as well. So we'll have those two entryways marked. Both will go out onto Dwyer. The second one will be loaded after the end of the canal. If you're looking at the plan, it's all the way plan east towards the access road. we don't think accessing the access road is a good idea. This is where the city's had an issue with some tires being dumped, and there's a major elevation change between that road and the adjacent DOTD road. So we don't see that changing very quickly. So we figured the access at the other location would be better. We're in agreement with all the other provisos. And then, yes, we will provide the second entry if you request it, if you'd like it.
Thank you. Staff have any response to any of the details offered or from the commission?
Commissioner, I do have a question for the applicant. So the intent is to put single-family homes on all of these lots?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
In question, when you had shared, we know that there's 9 provisos and there may be 11. What would the difference be with those two?
Essentially notating that we're going to add the second entry, which would actually be, we would use as an exit only, and access for fire department. And then also one that would define what the green spaces were.
Is there any consideration for any bioswales as well?
Yes, that's been a part of our plan with the 2 larger areas for water retention, stormwater.
Thank you.
I have a question for the applicant. What are the what's the sidewalk plan?
Essentially, we're expecting a 4-foot wide sidewalk with an easement.
I think it's important for subdivisions to have sidewalks for walkability.
Yes. I agree.
I note that Proviso 3 takes into consideration the existing plant materials as well as those planned. And you talked a bit about that, but if then you don't foresee a need of removing many trees or any trees at all? And if so, how does that work with parks and parkways?
With regards to any of the public right of way, there are no trees there. There are 2 easements that cross the site. One is an Entergy easement that is about 100 feet wide, crosses diagonally. The other is a sewage and water board that's, I believe, about 3 to 4 feet wide, crosses in an X pattern in the other direction. So the site has essentially been cleared in all the public areas. The site appears to have been cleared of all of its trees about 15 years ago. And we have an even cover of mostly willows and that type right now that would be fully cleared. And then we would be doing some infill for the part of the site as well.
So will your landscaping plans include any addition of more substantial trees like live oaks, or are those the inventory of those, any of those there that won't be removed, hopefully?
My expectation is, my last conversation with Guy Grissom, the landscape architect, he did want to include new live oaks along the Dwyer frontage. Beyond planting those inside the site, we were talking about some larger trees in the central area where we had originally planned to retain water, but opted to use that as a park because it was a central location through the streets, and it's covered by part of the Entergy right of way.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to agree with staff recommendation for tentative approval with the 11 provisos to make that technical change for zoning docket 022-23.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
With no further discussion, we'll call the vote. Motion passes. Next up is,
Mr. Chair, I have a brief interruption.
Sure.
Our eagle-eyed attorney noticed a discrepancy in the staff report for the previous item. In the first section of the report, it says 4 provisos. At the very end where the staff recommendation is, it says 3 provisos and there are 3 listed. And so I believe the the motion that you all voted on was for 4 provisos. But I was going to suggest that you all reconsider that and approve it with only 3 provisos just to avoid confusion down the road.
Okay, that's zoning docket 2023.
Yes.
Make a new motion.
Okay, so we're looking for a new motion.
So you'd have to do a motion to reconsider first
Gotcha.
and then a
So-
motion to,
So first.
Ju-
Okay. So first I'm looking for a motion for reconsideration of zoning docket 02023.
Okay, I move for reconsideration of our vote. Right? Reconsideration of our vote on zoning docket 2023.
I'll second.
We'll call the vote. Me too. We're missing. Great, okay, so that motion passes and then
Okay, and Michael, I'd like to make a new motion, zoning docket 2023, which is recommending approval of zoning docket 2023, subject to 3 provisos listed in the staff report.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, now we'll call the vote. Would a verbal vote suffice? Oh, there we go. We're good to go. Cast your ballots. Okay. Motion passes. Next up is subdivision docket 02423.
Subdivision docket 2423 is a request for a subdivision of Lot A located at 126 through 128 South Salcedo Street into lots A-1 and A-2. This subdivision attempts to subdivide one large lot that contains an existing 2-family dwelling into 2 individual lots in order for each dwelling to be placed on its own lot of record. The particularity about this site is that the existing 2-family dwelling does not face the front of the existing lot along Cleveland Street, but its corner side, South Salcedo Street. Therefore, the proposal would create 2 lots that are deficient in lot area and lot depth, and would create one new lot, Lot A-2, with frontage along South Salcedo Street rather than Cleveland Avenue. These unavoidable conditions of the new lots being substandard in size and depth have no true practical impact. The lot size, though relatively small, is still sufficient to accommodate the existing building. It's also necessary to accomplish the standards outlined in Article 20, Section 20.3.y of the CZO to separate 2 dwelling units of a 2-family dwelling onto their own lots. Staff is seeking approval of subdivision 024-23, subject to 2 provisos.
Thank you. We have one comment card from the applicant, Caleb Didkerson.
Yes, thank you. I'm Caleb Didrikson on behalf of.
Oh, could you speak a little bit closer into the mic?
Yeah, yes. My name is Caleb Didrikson. I'm the owner of Luke Corporation, the applicant. I had, with the help of an old engineer, friend of mine, had designed the property and built it with the 2 units each have 2 car garages underneath, which makes it so that the substandard lot size is less of an issue. We had attempted to sell it as condominiums, but people are somewhat resistant to condominiums just because of having to share a checkbook with your neighbor. we did have a community meeting by Zoom when we're trying to make it into townhouses. And then I found out that townhouse regulations required 3. But in our community meeting, there was no objection at all to the idea of making it townhouses, as long as the intent was to sell them as individual units so that the neighborhood would have more individual homeowners and less renters. And they were built at a high standard, so the really, they don't make sense as rentals. They really make sense as individually owned units. And so we are perfectly happy to comply with whatever the recommendations of the planning commission are in order to gain the approval. And we respectfully request your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Diverson. Is there any question for the applicant? If not, looking for a motion.
So I move, staff recommendation was approval with 2 provisos.
Yes.
Right, that's my motion.
Great. Is
And
there a
I'll second.
There's no further discussion. We'll call the vote. Okay, motion passes. Last up are subdivision ratifications.
And this is simply a list of ratifications that at staff level we believe are eligible for administrative approval. And your ratification would signify your agreement with that determination.
I'll move to ratify the subdivision ratifications.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
If there's no discussion, we'll call the vote. Motion passes.
What?
Oh, I didn't know that. It should be. Okay.
Move to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
There's a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Oh, what's going on? How did we go?